Oh, that was new.
You know, I'm an artist. We're trying artistic things.
Oh, good on you. That's very cool. It's better than the BBC test card from when I was a kid.
Oh, I don't know that, but maybe we'll try that.
Well, it was a blonde girl playing noughts and crosses,
Tic-tac-toe.
tic-tac-toe, in a yellow life jacket. They were getting the colour for Technicolor, and there was a green skull on the screen next to it. It was
Wow.
very, very 70s and odd.
Well, it clearly worked. You remember it.
Yes. Well, because TV wasn't all day back when I was a kid.
Right.
So
I remember when TV
stopped
used to
at
go
like
off.
10 in the morning, and then you got the test card till about 4 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah. It was probably better then.
Yeah, there would have been no Dr. Oz.
Whatever. So we wrapped up the 12 promises.
We did.
And today we're going to talk about this idea of being an alcoholic versus being a drunk. And I don't love the word, a phrase, drunk, because I think it's got a lot of negative connotations to it.
It does.
And judgment.
And I think that's the perception some people have of an alcoholic.
Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Bonnie. I think so too. I think so too.
Which is, it's totally unfair. I'm not just... If you see someone that you would think of as a drunk or a bum, they are an alcoholic who still suffers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't have used that phrase because I grew up in a household that didn't really use slang.
No way. Well, you don't even say the word fridge.
Oh my gosh. Bonnie, are you typing right as we speak? Yeah, we can't. You don't mic something. You don't go to the fridge. You don't do anything slangy.
Yes.
My grandma had no time for slang.
Dana and I don't have insurance benefits. We don't have bennies. Wanted to make that perfectly clear
Yes.
for everyone.
Some stuff you just don't shake from your grandma. So anyway, to call someone a drunk would have been really crass. And just not a phrase that I would have used. But I'll say this. The stereotype of a drunk.
Oh,
I just
tea on the leg.
dumped tea on my leg.
Tea on the leg. There we go.
The stereotype of a drunk would certainly have been why I didn't realize that Maz was an alcoholic. Because as I have said many times, he never got a DUI, he never got pulled over by the police, he never crashed his car, he never couldn't get up and go to work. So I thought alcoholics were people who staggered around and had a bottle in their hand, and I mean all of the negative connotations of a Hollywood drunk was what I thought an alcoholic was. And if you weren't that, then I knew you could drink too much, but I didn't understand there was a gradation of what it meant to be consumed with alcohol. So, do people use the phrase, he's a drunk, anymore?
I don't think so. One thing that always has stuck with me ever since this happened, and you were there, when we went on our little... It was only last summer.
I don't know, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Your mom and Bob, you and I spent 3 days in Iceland and then went to England.
Oh, that was a nice trip.
Well, remember when
It was either last summer or 32 years ago. It's hard to
we
say.
got back to get picked up from the train station near Windsor, and there was an alcoholic outside the train station. There was like 3 or 4 of them. One of them started talking to me.
Man, he must have sensed something in you because you became his best friend.
But he wasn't. He was incredibly polite and kind.
Yep.
And he wanted to show me a video, so I had to look him up on YouTube. Someone took a video of him and put it online of him singing a song.
Yeah.
And he thought it was brilliant, and it really broke my heart that. And he kept asking me the same thing as what you do, because if you're with severe liver damage, you can't retain or make vitamin B1, which helps lay down long-term memories in your brain, which is why you keep repeating yourself.
Oh, that's the science fact for the day.
You even said to me, you knew there was something wrong with me. You said, Mazzy, you wouldn't have ended up like that. And it was just hard to see.
Yeah. I think anytime you've been in a tough spot, and you get out of it, and you see people who didn't. It's hard. As you all no doubt know, Quinn and I lived in income-based housing and were on paper very, very poor for a very long time. We obviously got out of it and were always safe while we were there. So our poverty was probably the best kind of poverty to have. But when I see someone else, particularly a single mom and her children living in poverty, I have a probably different reaction to that than your average mom, because I know what that life is like. I know what the judgment feels like. I know how people view you when they find out your address, or when they see the car you're driving, or the sitting at the bus stop, or whatever it is. I know intimately how that feels, and I know how blessed I am to have gotten away from it, gotten out of it. And it's not a given that you'll get out of this stuff. So yeah, I had kind of forgotten about that guy, but of course you hadn't.
Yeah, I still think about him actually.
Well, what do you want to say to people who want to be either judgmental of the drunks that they know or observe, or who want to act like the people in their lives who are drunks, if you're going to just talk about an alcoholic in a slang term, but they won't acknowledge it because that's somebody different. That's somebody to judge. That's not my spouse, my child, my parent. They just maybe drink too much, but they're not drunks.
It's another fine example as how we as a species tend to judge and think other people are below us.
Yeah.
It's almost, I mean, would you say it's kind of a prejudice? I mean, I don't want to use
100%.
that word because there are,
No,
there are
100%.
stronger things to be prejudiced about that we still do, which is just ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah. Do we hold it against people if they have a drinking problem? Of course we do. Do we judge them before we know them? Of course we do. And boy, I'm married to one, and I will tell you, I don't go out of my way if I'm downtown, for example, and I am walking and someone who's obviously inebriated stops me. I don't go out of my way to get to know them, to see past the addiction. I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. So it would be great to think that having lived through this with Maz, now I am much more empathetic and sympathetic to that person. But I still have to take care of myself. And I can't do much for that person, so I don't.
No, do you remember what was that event where you had at the old tap building?
Yeah. Artful Evening.
You had a band playing. It was really cold, and you and I were doing the ticket game.
Oh! We did a fall outdoor music concert.
So
yeah.
This guy came across the road, and he was a meth addict, and he was a chronic meth addict.
We had some food trucks set up. Yeah.
It had actually taken his toll on his nervous system because he couldn't walk straight. He was really jittery, and he was friendly, and he came over. And people, people that come up to you, they don't always want money. A lot of the time, they actually want to have a conversation because they're lonely. And in their mind, they think, I'll talk to that person. I mean, they don't have any malice in them most of the time. But I just bought that this guy was just walking. They were home. He and 3 other people were homeless. And I said, well, how many of you are there? And he said 3. So I just happened to have enough money to buy 4 to set meals and gave them to him. And I think that I didn't have enough money for water. So the guys in the food truck just gave him 4 bottles of water. And then about half an hour later, he and 3 other people came back out from behind the flood wall and thanked me for dinner.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's the incredible least I could have done. It's hard. Well, it's hard for me to say, hey man, why don't you just go to a treatment centre? Because that's not an easy fix. I mean, these people probably were in a treatment centre. It's one of the things I think maybe we should talk about this on a separate video is how people get in a state where they're a meth addict. And there is a lot of literature out there that does support the theory, and it's one that I actually believe in, that a lot of these people end up with sports injuries or injuries, and then they're prescribed painkillers, which of course are opiates and addictive. And if you have the tendency to be more susceptible to develop an addiction, you're in trouble. There's at least 3 people I know in AA that started drinking heavily to get themselves off taking painkillers, and then they became alcoholics. And then of course a lot of people take meth because they've used up every way they could get a prescription painkiller, legally or otherwise. And some people tragically take meth for the first time, and it's incredibly addictive, because in the 70s it was the main ingredient of diet pills.
Yeah.
And clandestine meth from labs, which is stupidly easy to make, it's got all those impurities, and does you incredibly bad damage to your body very quickly.
Okay, so just to wrap this up, I think, one, let's all try to remember that behind the addiction lives a person.
Yeah.
A broken person, but guess what? Find the line of unbroken people and you will find it's a very short line.
Plus the fact, if you're trying to deal with one of these people, it's easy that you get exasperated, and it's no judgment on you, because talking to someone who won't listen because they're in that state, it cannot be easy for you either.
And 2, if you're married to someone who's drinking too much, stop thinking they're not an alcoholic. Stop thinking they're not a drunk. You don't have to call them a drunk, because again, it's just a slang term for an alcoholic, and it's a slang term with a lot of judgment to it. So, it falls kind of into the category of slut and whore and words that just aren't appropriate anymore for most people. So, stop pretending that your alcoholic is better than the person on the street. Alcoholism is alcoholism is alcoholism. And if you're living with it, you're suffering with it too. So, I think if we could try to remove some judgment from it, both in the way we're trying to judge someone positively or judge someone negatively, maybe we could help a lot more people help themselves, which would help all of us.
Yes.
So,
some fantastic advice and good words there too.
Thanks, Mezzy. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.